going to trust somebody that you don't know? If a person that you didn't know came walking up across the street trying to tell you what to do, it wouldn't fly with you. But what a lot of people don't realize is it's the same thing with yourself. Standing in your power is knowing that nobody can do it for you quite like you can do it for yourself. And it's mainly because you know yourself and you've learned yourself and you're putting yourself in the positions that are going to be favorable to you. Hey Pixies, welcome back to my channel. It's me, Kia, and I'm back with another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about how to learn yourself, know yourself, and find your power. I think this is a very important topic for women especially because a lot of women struggle with finding their voice, knowing themselves, knowing their power, showing up as their authentic selves, and being able to just be comfortable in their skin. So if you like topics like this, make sure you give this video a thumbs up and share and subscribe if you're new. So in order to know yourself, you have to first learn yourself, and then once you know who you are, you can find your power. But a lot of times we find that challenging or difficult because, like, off the bat, when you're born, there are so many things for you to pay attention to, so many different things that you have to learn. And while you're exploring the world and exploring yourself, there's always somebody kind of like over your shoulder guiding you. And yes, it's for our protection, but some of it could be a little bit overkill with the course correction that came from like our parents or teachers or caregivers. A lot of us really don't know who we are at times outside of what we were presented if you're not necessarily a self-exploratory person naturally. If you don't naturally think, well, what about this? Or what if I did things that way? Or what if I tried this thing? So oftentimes it kind of gets lost in there because you could have quite frankly grown up doing a lot of things out of convenience or necessity, but what you know yourself to be, the things that you're used to, they might not necessarily coincide with who you actually are. So for a time as we're growing up, it can be like easy or convenient to just like listen to what we're told, like kind of go along with the guidelines that we're given so that we don't mess anything up until we find the confidence with ourselves. And that's fine, but the issue that I feel like a lot of people face today is that they never find that confidence. They never find that inner voice. They never quite have the ability to say, this is who I am and I stand on that. I stand on my decisions and I'm comfortable with, you know, knowing that how I show up is the way that I'm supposed to, is going to be the way that I'm well received, and it's going to make me feel confident in myself and my decisions. Naturally, I was born with a healthy dose of like confidence and like a strong sense of myself. And I know that's contrary to what we hear a lot of times. It's like people struggle to find their voice, find their confidence, stand up for themselves. And I've never had a problem with those things, but the thing about it is when you live in a world where people who lack confidence and they don't know themselves, it can be more difficult for you to be yourself because you have to digest everybody's projections and their fears, where, you know, naturally I was always more of like a fearless kid, like, sure, I got it, I can do it myself, or I can learn this thing, and, you know, not being afraid to try or put myself out there. Whereas, you know, other people might see that and some people might be inspired, but other people might try to like talk you down or those kind of things. So it still has to do with learning how to learn yourself, agree with yourself, and know yourself so that you can stand in your power. I talk about how I transitioned from girlhood to womanhood, and a big part of that for me was taking a break off social media. We are bombarded with so many different narratives, so many different renditions of life, so many different people's opinions of what to do, how to be. Depending on what's trending, we get stuck in these algorithms of thought on like how you should be, like what's trending right now that says this is the way to be to get to success. This is what you should be focused on, instead of focusing on like what's actually calling to you and speaking to you from inside. Not to mention your mom and your dad and your teacher and whoever's voice is in your head that's like guiding your experience. A lot of people don't even hear their own voice talking to them when they make decisions. So to me, a good first step to learning yourself is just taking responsibility that it's your job to yourself to know who you are and to find who you are for yourself so you can be the best version of who you can be. You know, a lot of times we get caught up in nobody told me, or I wasn't taught this, or I wasn't taught that. Well, what are you going to teach yourself? What are you going to learn about yourself that's going to frame the way that you show up and that you view the world and that you see life? So the number one thing that you have to do to learn yourself is to first take responsibility and then give yourself permission to go along this journey. The next step is to find time to have intimacy with yourself. This can look different for different people. Some people achieve this through exercise. Some people achieve it through journaling. Whatever it is for you, I definitely would recommend some sort of journaling. For me, I'm not super heavy on the journaling, but at times when I have to define things about myself and I have to ask myself questions, it can be easy to write them down. So the types of things that I say is like, who am I? Like, what do I like? Why do I like these things? What makes me happy? Why do these things make me happy? It's kind of the same as if you were getting to know somebody else, and it might sound like a little bit corny or cliche, but you literally want to ask yourself like, well, what do I think about myself? Why do I think this about myself? What kind of situations do I find myself in? Why do I find myself in those situations? Do I like the situations? Everything doesn't have to be a bad thing. And that's another thing as well. Like, every single thing is not something that you want to like hone in and fix. But for the things that you do want to and the things that you want to have fine tuning, start asking yourself these intimate questions about yourself and then see what comes up. Some stuff that comes up, you may like it. Some stuff that comes up, you may not like it. Then sit with that. Like, how do these things that I'm discovering about myself make me feel versus how I want to feel about myself? How is that going to translate into how I show up and interact with other people? These are the foundational steps that you take to learning yourself by just asking yourself questions that, quite frankly, nobody may have asked you, or you might not have given yourself permission to ask yourself before. So once you learn yourself, it's really important that you come up with a narrative about yourself that empowers you and you stick to it. Like, a lot of times we give our power away because we let other people's opinions of us and their idea of what we should be doing or what we shouldn't be doing or how we should go about something, we let that outweigh what we think about ourselves. I say that to say, whatever you learn about yourself, take that as the authority on, your experience in who you are. If you're putting yourself in different situations to learn yourself, if you're discovering yourself through journaling and different activities, like, you have to have confidence to say like, okay, this is who I'm learning that I am. And with this information, I'm going to start to draft that into the person that I want to be. And then don't give your power away to other people by like underestimating who you are. I think we all know spending time alone is very important, but at the same time, you don't want to get sucked into too much isolation, because it is important that you go into the world and test the theories that you're coming up with about yourself. Like, you have to learn about yourself by putting yourself in situations and having the confidence that if I'm in this situation, I know that I'm going to act in accordance to, my character or who I am. And you have to have the confidence for that. So it's like, you can't, go into hiding or anything like that. I know a lot of people do that, but you don't want to do that because it's a little bit counterproductive, and it kind of just puts you in like this pseudo environment of just like self-healing or growth or whatever it is. And it's like, you have to get out into the world and experience things so that you can actually test your growth. If like you used to going to the club and partying and, and that's something that you want to stop, and you never step foot outside the house and you never find different activities to place that, trust me, I've been there, then you're gonna start to feel like you don't know what you're doing, like you don't have any interest anymore, you don't have any hobbies. If you just have friends that were used to gossiping or maybe doing this thing, you gotta start meeting new people that like to talk about different things, find different interests, determine what do I want to talk about, and then find people that want to talk about that same thing. Because if you don't, that's when you start feeling like you're spiraling or you're lost or nobody really relates to you. But you have to remember, there's a whole world out there. And then once you're in a new situation, just ask yourself how you feel. If you meet a new friend, say, how did I feel from hanging out with this person? If you go on a date, like, oh, how did that go? Like, how did this make me feel? Like, what was something that this person said that made me laugh or made me raise an eyebrow? You can also like journal about your experiences. Like, I went to the store today and XYZ happened. I met a new friend today and this happened. I went on a date today and this happened. And you can kind of keep a journal so you can like remind yourself of what is and what is not, working for you. Or you can like, talk it through to yourself just as you're like going to bed, like doing your nighttime routine. Just kind of recap what happened to you throughout the day, and then literally just say, did I like this? No. Did I like this? Yes. How did it make me feel? And that's literally all it takes to learn yourself. The knowing comes into place where it's like you have a kind of can't nobody tell me nothing attitude. Though you can be open for, change and, feedback where it's warranted. Like, you have to get used to trusting yourself and saying like, hey, I know how to make good decisions for myself because I know who I am. I know how to say yes. I know how to say no. And that's when you really start to find your power. That's when you really start to stand in it. You don't need a lot of different people's opinions of, telling you who you are. Once you go down that path, go down that road of like redefining or defining yourself for the first time, the more you get settled in this idea of yourself that you have determined, the more you will feel like you have more intimacy, more knowledge of yourself, and you will be able to stand in your power. Any situation that comes up, if I'm in a situation where, I'm out and I meet somebody and maybe they're a little bit mean to me, or maybe I, go on a date, or I meet somebody and it's not really going the way that I wanted to, I don't take these things personally. Why? Because I tell myself, this person doesn't know me. I know me. And the way that I treat myself, because I know myself, because I care about myself and I value myself, that has nothing to do with how anybody else, chooses to treat me. If I know that I'm putting my best foot forward, if I know I'm showing up as who I want to be, if I know that I'm doing the things that is necessary to be incongruent with myself, sometimes finding your power just means, okay, this situation doesn't really fit. And I know that. So I'm going to just remove myself from the situation. And that's the part where a lot of people get confused with like standards and boundaries and things like that. And it's like, your standards are for you. Your boundaries are for you, and they're meant for you to uphold. Your boundaries help you govern yourself and help you decide what you're going to say yes to and what you are going to say no to. When you adhere to your boundaries, you're adhering to an agreement that you've made with yourself. And the more you do that, the more consistent you are with that, the more you will trust yourself, the more you will know yourself, and the more you will be able to feel powerful and stand in your power. If every time a situation happens and you bend your standards because you're used to going along with what other people want, or you let your boundaries be crossed because you're putting yourself in underserving situations, you'll never quite feel that resonance of knowing of who you are and feeling confident and trusting that, I can handle this. I can go through life and I can handle myself. And that's where people start to feel like they lack power. That's where people start to feel unsure about themselves. But the more you practice knowing who you are and saying that you are the authority of who you are, and knowing when to put yourself in a favorable situation, and once it stops being favorable, taking you out of that situation, that's where your power lies. The reason why a lot of people feel powerless is because they give their power away, is because they don't take control and they are not autonomous over themselves and their decisions. A lot of people fear getting manipulated or getting taken advantage of. But when you have boundaries, when you have a healthy level of self-respect and self-knowledge and self-trust, you know not to let things get that far, because it's not going to be favorable to you. You won't have those fears and you won't encounter those problems as much, and that's how you're going to be able to stand in your power as well, is because you're just not open to giving it away. People, get caught up in the cliche of having somebody know them better than they know themselves, but that's just setting yourself up for failure. And that's literally just saying, hey, here's my power, take it. If you know me more than I know myself, if a person knows how to, maneuver and manipulate your emotions, and they've watched you, they've studied you, they understand your actions, they understand how you respond in a situation, but you haven't done that for yourself, you're literally giving your power away and you're taking it away from yourself. And you could know that about yourself. So never expect other people to know you better than you know yourself. And that's why I started off by saying, like, you have to take responsibility in order to know yourself and find your power, because it's nobody else's responsibility to know you inside and out but yourself. Finding your power is such a relief as well, because a lot of things won't seem as serious to you anymore. People can't trigger you. Nobody can really tell you anything about yourself. And really, you'll just have the attitude of like, hey, it is what it is. I'm just here to have fun. And once it stops being fun, I'm not going to do it anymore. A lot of times when you lack power, you seek control. People have a tendency to overthink and want to be all in the details of things when they don't feel that, their inner power resonating within themselves is enough. So if you find yourself being like a control freak or you can't trust people, it's all stemming from probably like you can't trust yourself. And how are you going to trust somebody that you don't know? If a person that you didn't know came walking up across the street trying to tell you what to do, it wouldn't fly with you. But what a lot of people don't realize is it's the same thing with yourself, which is why it's important to learn yourself, know yourself, develop that intimacy so you can ultimately feel powerful and settled within who you are. And I feel like this is one of the ultimate pillars to womanhood for me that has caused me to just be more like confident, feel like I'm flourishing, just be more like happy and comfortable in my skin and really ready to like take on any situation that benefits me and be confident to say no to the things that really just don't serve me. Standing in your power is knowing that nobody can do it for you quite like you can do it for yourself. And it's mainly because you know yourself and you've learned yourself and you're putting yourself in the positions that are going to be favorable to you. You're having conversations that are going to lift you up. You're, choosing environments that are going to be for the betterment of yourself. And if at any time you find yourself in a situation where it's like, oh, maybe I don't like this anymore, it's just having the autonomy to decide and choose that and to choose to pivot to something that is going to benefit you more. I can tell you right now, your life will get way easier when you know yourself and you stand in your power, because the thing is there's going to be less friction and less confrontation because people are just going to act like they know because you show up with this confidence and this presence or this essence that you know. A lot of times it's like people find themselves in situations, but let's be honest, like 9 times out of 10, people know who they can and cannot try. And if they don't know, then by the way you act, by the way you handle situations, by the way you carry yourself, or choose to just remove yourself completely, you just show people like, hey, this is what I am and I am not available for. Another sign of learning yourself and standing in your power is just being able to say yes to more of the things that make you feel good about yourself and just no to the things that don't. So if going to a certain place, irritates you, if hanging out with certain people makes you gossip more, if attending certain places makes you more of like a Debbie Downer or having to do certain things, like figure out a way to minimize those things. And if something is like fun, like, ooh, how can I do this more? Another way you stand in your power is like stop worrying about everybody else and just worry about yourself. A lot of times, whether it's work or school, growing up in homes with siblings, a lot of people don't know who they are. They just know who they think they are in comparison to somebody else. And this is why a lot of times people feel the need to prove themselves. You know why the teacher doesn't have to take a test? Because everybody is of the understanding of like, oh, they just know. They don't have anything to prove. When you don't actually know, you start to put yourself in situations or put yourself next to people, or, you fall into that comparison trap instead of just standing in your power and saying like, oh, okay, I'm over here, I'm doing me, I'm not looking at the next person, so therefore I know what's going on over here. I don't have anything to prove. And the thing about it is the teacher knows, so whoever else doesn't know, like, you better catch up, you better learn. It's not your issue if somebody else doesn't recognize your power, if they don't see you for who you are, as long as you see yourself. And that's what power actually is. It's like an inner resonating sense of self that doesn't have to be proved or explained, but it can definitely be felt when a person is in that bag of knowing who they are and not having to prove it to the next person. You're standing in your power when you feel like you have nothing to prove. You're standing in your power when you feel carefree. And you're standing in your power when you feel like you don't have to control the outcome or replay a situation or rehash it, because you're confident that you played your part and that was good enough. Standing in your power is also realizing that what's good for you isn't going to be what's good for everybody else. What you like might not be the best thing for the next person, and that's okay. You stand in your power when you're able to say, okay, if this is aligned with me and what I've defined for myself, then great, I would love to participate. If not, I'll see you when I see you. And just knowing that opportunities are not passing you. You don't have to say yes to everything because you're really not missing out on anything. If you struggle with people pleasing, you definitely want to learn yourself more and understand why is it you feel the need to fulfill everyone else's needs and put them before yours. And a lot of people actually know why they are a people pleaser. So then the next question would be like, why don't you feel like you're worthy enough to put your needs before other people's and have your needs met? Especially grown people that are definitely going to be fine with or without your assistance. So yeah, babes, that's the video. If you just focus on yourself and learning who you are, I promise you, you will find your power, because then you'll be confident that nobody knows you like you know yourself. Nobody can, tell you what's best for you like you're able to tell it to yourself. And that's ultimately going to be like a big confidence booster for you. And it's going to, impact the way that you show up, the way that you see yourself, and then the way that the world responds to you. As a result, give yourself the opportunity to develop that trust, develop that intimacy with yourself, and just do that by observing yourself and, just being a witness to your own experience, and then just going from there. Have fun with it. Don't put too much pressure on yourself. I want to know down below, what do you think of this topic? Did it resonate with you? Do you feel like you have found your personal power? Do you feel like you're still learning yourself? Do you feel like you know yourself? Of course, it's an ever-going journey, but where are you at in your process of learning to accept yourself for who you are, observe yourself, and stand in your power? I want to know. Thank y'all so much for tuning into this video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Bye.